Mics are on.
Those are ready?
Yeah.
Okay,
All right. Are we ready to roll?
Yeah. Leaning towards, I don't know.
No, I don't know.
Okay, good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, October 10th at 6 p.m., and I'm going to call this Barre City Council meeting to order. Councilors present tonight include Councilor Deering, Councilor Sean Bell, Councilor Booton, Councilor Lozon, Councilor Stockwell, Councilor Wozniak, and I'm Mayor Hemrick. We're joined by City Manager Strelly Castro and Clerk Treasurer Dawes. Tonight's agenda is available online and in the back of the room. The meeting has been publicly posted, is being recorded, and is subject to Vermont's open meeting law and the council's rules of procedure, both of which are available online if you'd like to review them. I'd offer a warm welcome to all of our guests and members of the public joining us tonight. And to those of you joining us online, please keep in mind that the chat function should only be used for technical issues or difficulties, and we ask that you remain muted, except when recognized to speak. The city offers online access as a convenience, and we will continue this meeting if any technical difficulties occur. Please raise your hand or signal if you'd like to be recognized. I'll call on speakers in order, allowing those who haven't spoken yet to speak first, and limiting time, if necessary, to do the city's business. Please state your name for the record, whether you're online or here in person. And if you're here in person, we ask that everybody come to the front microphone. That way, our media recordings can pick it up, and people online can hear you. If you have any questions about process or procedure, please ask and we'll get it sorted. And I want to thank everyone in advance, as I always do, for participating in a civil and respectful way. The first item on the second item on our agenda is adjustments to Agenda Manager Strelly Castro.
Thanks, Mayor. I believe we're going to move item 8B and 8C to visitors and communications. Since there's no action, I would go with 8C followed by 8B in that order.
Yeah, so we're going to move the flood recovery updates from Secretary Moore and the Barre Opera House up to visitors and communication, since there's no business items there. Are there any other changes that you'd like to request?
Not for me.
City councilors.
I'd like to move item A under 8A to the consent agenda.
8A to the consent agenda. Are there objections to moving 8A, the authorization of the real estate contract, to the consent agenda?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine if you want to do that. It should be separate. I won't be voting for it, so it should be separate. I would like for it to be separate. I mean, we don't have to have substantial conversation. I just.
Well, the point of the consent agenda item is to group non-controversial items, and since you're objecting to that, Councilor Booton, I'll rule to keep that in place on the agenda. Are there other adjustments to the agenda?
I'd be okay with moving the amendment to municipal bodies, but I don't know if anybody has any objection to that.
Are there objections to moving item 8F, the motion, I'm sorry, I have the wrong one, 8D, municipal bodies and appointment policies. Minor change, well vetted, well written in the,
No objection.
all right. If there are no objections, we'll move that up to the consent agenda. Hearing, seeing none. I'll put that at the end after 4G. So that's the 8, just for the record, 8D to after 4G. And Carol will dutifully remind me if I mess this up. So, all right. The other thing I would like to just do is, since we have separate out old business and new business, which is consistent with our policy, and group the Wheelock House discussion and the removal of Raylene Munier, and then take up new business in appointments. I would like bonding to move down off the consent agenda because it's a $3 million bond, and I think anytime we commit $3 million, we should have a little overview and discussion of it, and then take up the. There's nothing left after that. All right. So if there are no objections,
I'm lost.
I'm gonna, yeah.
I'll go along with it, but.
All right.
Sorry,
So
you
under
lost
old
me.
business, which comes before new business always, that we would do the Wheelock House, and then we would do the Planning Commission appointments, since this has been ongoing. And then under new business, we would take up our appointments, the bonding that's up on the consent agenda now, And then I think that closes out the agenda.
Not arguing, but wouldn't that be under new business? Because up until now, we have retained executive privilege and we've never seen it on an open item. That would technically be under
Okay,
new, not old.
that's fine. I can put it before the appointments if you like.
Yep, no worries.
All right. All right, so that settles that. That takes us to our consent agenda. So we have a couple items. We have an approval of the minutes, I'm sorry, visitors and communications, which I always do. So I think we're beginning with we have several distinguished guests here tonight. We have Secretary Moore of the Agency of Natural Resources. We have Secretary Curley of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. We have Doug Farnham, and I think your title is Director of Recovery for the state? Chief Recovery Officer for the state, as well as the Interim Commissioner of the Department of Housing and Community Development, Alex Farrell. If you could come join us here up front.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
If it's all right with you all, Doug will kick us off.
All right. Well, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I just want to thank you all for having us here tonight. This is a really exciting opportunity for us because when we look back at the July floods, obviously we've been going 100 miles an hour since then, at the state and at the municipal level. And a lot of people have been experiencing a lot of hardship around the state. But when we look back on the impact to all of our communities, Barre stands out as far and away the most impacted community. By most metrics, Barre suffered 2.5 times the damage of even in Montpelier, which was the second most impacted community. And then there's a pretty steep fall off point beyond that for other communities. Now they suffered, like Johnson had a very big issue with their water treatment facility. But as far as community, residential, and business impact, Barre stands out as the most impacted. I think some of the data on that, just to fill that in, is that when we collected the debris, and it's a shame to call it debris because it's people's lives, right? And Barre had nearly 4,000 tons of debris that was pulled out just through the state contract. And I believe that the city also pulled out some debris on their own. So that number isn't even necessarily the total number. And behind that, Montpelier had 1,600 tons. So again, Barre had more than double the amount of debris of the city of Montpelier. The individual assistance grants given out by FEMA, which I appreciate FEMA, I work with them every day, but the individual assistance program is far from a perfect metric. It has a cap of 41,000, so people that suffered extreme financial loss, it's not going to be considered in that number. If you don't go back and forth and be really clear with FEMA, you can get a smaller award than you really do. We were seeing that happening quite a bit. But all of that being considered, the state has seen over $21 million of FEMA assistance go out. Over 3.6 million of that to residents of the city of Barre. So about 16% or so of statewide assistance has been concentrated here in Barre. That's a very, very heavy concentration. When we look at, we always look back and compare the event to Irene, and if you do, you don't find such a dense concentration of damage in Irene that we did this time around. And then recently, the state sent out a survey to ask people about their heating systems. And we sent that survey out to over 1,000 households that reported damage to their heating systems initially to FEMA. And when we got responses back, at this point, we've received responses from over 500 households. We're still calling people and trying to get people to respond. But over 240 of those households that have responded to us still need assistance. And out of that 240, 50 of those households are in Barre. So more than a fifth of the people that need help fixing their heating systems live in the city of Barre. It goes over 50 if you include Berlin and some of the areas right on the edge. And about half of those 50 have reported that they're going to have difficulty repairing the furnace with their own finances. So we are looking into ways to help people financially. We don't have a solution right today, but we're trying to scope out how much financial assistance is needed. But we have received the message from people that they're going to have difficulty not just finding the contractor to do those repairs, but paying for the repairs as well. So those three pieces of data tell a story to me that, and obviously data doesn't tell as good of a story as walking the north end, shortly after the floods. And I don't want to go into that too deeply, but I definitely visited the site shortly after the event, before I was actually even appointed to my role. I was been working with the state for 12 years, and I was appointed to the chief recovery officer a couple weeks after the flooding. But I've been working on pandemic recovery for a couple years now, and finding federal funds is kind of my stock and trade at this point, I guess. So to avoid me talking too much, I'm gonna, Mr. Mayor, you already introduced the team, so I don't think I need to go into any more introductions. So I will just hand it over to Secretary Moore at this point.
Thanks.
And sorry for if you can, for the benefit of folks online, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. So I am the Secretary of Natural Resources. I'm also an engineer by training, and really going to talk a little bit about what we see as some of the potential opportunities around resilience when we're thinking about ways to recover and revitalize following this flood event. And, not to sort of steal the thunder at the end, but ultimately this team in front of you tonight is here trying to look for ways to access some of the federal funding that was recently appropriated. I think it's important context that FEMA most years sees about $6 billion nationwide into their budget as part of the continuing resolution passed a couple of weeks ago. They were appropriated $16 billion. So there is additional money to support recovery and revitalization work right now in a way that hasn't existed before. And hoping that we can tell a compelling story that will garner your interest in working with the state to pursue some of those funds, particularly think with an eye towards North Barre and what the art of the possible may be there. So as you well know, many communities in Vermont were built along rivers and streams. Barre is no exception. And over time, we've sort of crept even closer to those waterways, placing buildings along their banks and leaving them without a lot of room to move or outside their channels or overflow before homes and businesses begin to flood. If we had it to do over, and knowing what we know now, we probably would make different choices. But instead, we have to play the hand we've been dealt. And this hand is the hand we have, so we need to use what we have. And we do have some tools and some real world experience gained on the ground in Vermont following Tropical Storm Irene that show us that there's ways to make a real difference, to prepare for and be adaptable to changing climate conditions. And these include looking for opportunities to protect and restore natural systems, things like reconnecting rivers to their floodplains, planting trees along stream banks, and considering buyouts for particularly flood-prone properties. It includes floodproofing homes and businesses that are likely to see recurrent but lower floodwaters, things like raising windows, sealing doors, and elevating utilities, furnaces, and electrical systems, chief among them. We've learned a heck of a lot about designing roads and bridges and culverts post-Irene to be able to better handle a range of flows, and putting in place systems that support fast, effective recovery when a flood event occurs. And just want to give a couple of different examples of places we've seen that work take place in Vermont over the last 10 years or so to sort of help get you thinking. The first is the Waterbury State Office Complex. The complex received significant damage during Tropical Storm Irene in 2011 and was rebuilt largely with significant investments made to guard against the next flood. This included taking down 22 buildings, about 300,000 square feet that were closest to the river, and fill under those buildings was actually removed to create more storage for the river before it would reach the remaining buildings. all of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems used to be in a tunnel system under the state complex. I don't know how many of you had the experience of being in there, but they've been moved from basement areas to the lowest floor of the structure, and the basements were actually filled with flowable concrete. So now everything's above a 500-year flood level. And then almost 1,000 feet of river frontage behind the Waterbury State Office complex was replanted with trees and shrubs. It creates healthy stream banks and helps slow floodwaters when the Winooski River rises. As a result of all of these investments, the Waterbury complex experienced only minimal damage in the floods of this year and was able to fully reopen within 2 weeks, as opposed to years following Tropical Storm Irene. Another local example to point to is the park in Northfield. Flooding along the Dog River again during 2011 damaged 18 homes and displaced 25 households because there were several multifamily residents involved, and the Water Street neighborhood right behind Norwich University. And the town worked with affected property owners and FEMA to secure flood buyouts. This helped move homeowners out of harm's way and allowed the town to acquire 5 acres of floodplain area just upstream from their downtown that now stores water during high flow events and decreases flood damage in the remaining homes. That 5-acre area is now known as the Water Street River Park and has walking paths that are used by community members as well as access to the river for wading and fishing. So it's sort of a win-win in reducing flood risk, but also enhancing the downtown area. And then finally, an example that's a little further removed from us here in Vermont, but Minot, North Dakota is another place that's undergone an extensive revitalization following a pretty devastating flood. They received significant funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to implement several projects in service of 3 goals that were locally defined, including flood risk reduction, affordable and resilient neighborhoods, and economic resilience. This included a buyout program, probably not unlike what was described in Northfield, but also, I think more interestingly, a buy-in program with the creation of affordable and resilient housing in the neighborhoods. Many of the longtime residents had to move out of their homes following that catastrophic flood event, and the buy-in program created 600 new units of affordable housing, including a combination of rental units and units that were direct home ownership in these resilient neighborhoods. And in addition to this buy-in program, there was also the development of some resilient open spaces. Again, identifying those places that just, it is not possible to flood proof, and to instead take advantage of them, not only for flood storage, but as a recreation and community amenity. So they're really great examples to look to, both here in Vermont, and other places in the country that present a vision not only for resilience, but revitalization and community reinvestment following a catastrophic flood as was experienced here earlier this year. And maybe we'll turn it over to Alex to talk in a little bit more detail about the opportunities we see for some of the housing components.
Okay. So hi, I'm Alex Farrell. I'm the interim commissioner at the Department of Housing and Community Development. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm going to talk a bit about what you all know to be true, the housing crisis that's particularly acute here in Barre, but I think it still bears walking through just because it's going to inform some of the considerations as we look to rebuild. So firstly, the reason we're here is to share our concerns, share some of our thoughts, but mostly to just offer our hands in partnership, because it's all of you that are going to sort of lead this charge and help us understand what's important to the community. So thank you for that. You all know that the state's housing stock has been suffering from a combination of a lack of new unit generation and deterioration of the existing stock. So oftentimes what this means is, even as we're feeling like we're building a lot new in Vermont, it's actually not netting out to be a whole lot. That's especially acute here in Barre City, and I'll cite a stat or two in a moment that I'm sure won't shock anybody right here, but I think it frames the issue. Obviously, even prior to the flood, Barre City was suffering from a housing crisis. And what's especially disheartening is we were saying the same thing when we were saying, oh, even prior to the pandemic, Barre City is suffering from an acute housing crisis. And here we are, another tragic situation that's making it even more difficult. The homelessness crisis is especially acute. We have plenty of stats, but I think we can see it and feel it. So just to frame this a little bit, I'm going to touch on a couple stats that I think stick out to us and make us see a lot of reason to view the opportunity ahead of us with possible federal funds coming. So the last time that a decennial census showed a net unit increase in Barre City was the 1990 to 2000 census, and that was only a 0.42% net unit increase. During the next 2 decades, 2000 to 2010, 2010 to 2020, Barre City saw a decrease in its net housing supply by 0.2% and then 0.45% respectively. That's that housing stock atrophy I'm talking about. You compound this issue with the fact that the average household size is decreasing. That's happening everywhere in Vermont, but it's particularly, you can see it here in Barre City. As of 1990, it was a little over 2.25 people per household. Now it's more like 2.15. What that means is even if your population stays flat, as people per household is dropping, you need more housing units to house the same number of people. That's compounding the issue. Now, the shortage of senior housing is just one factor in that spectrum, but the effect that has is it diminishes the churn in the market. And so you end up with folks that are overhoused because they don't have a lot of options, because it's not financially feasible for certain seniors to go into another living situation. And that prevents folks who would otherwise look to buy these single family homes or other homes from being able to get in there. So that right there hits on a few of the needs that we see. But just to really drive it home, we know that the homelessness crisis is particularly urgent. We know that to be the case throughout the state, but we also want to know that here in Barre City, we understand that it's also very, very acute and very urgent. So, so some of the considerations that we think are important and that we want to put in front of you as we think about how we rebuild, particularly when it comes to housing. This is a moment where bold action, I think, is appropriate. And likely in a larger scale than we've seen in recent decades. That's only successful if this effort is led by this community, led by you all, and there's a partnership with the federal, the folks that are going to bring this funding to us, and then us at the state. And so that's really what, and Secretary Curley and Doug are going to touch on that in a moment here, but that's really what we're here to try to achieve. So some of these priorities, and I'm not going to dive into detail here, but we know we need to increase net new housing units. Included in that, we've got to make sure that we're trying to maintain home ownership opportunities for the folks that have been displaced or currently live in areas where it's becoming less and less feasible to maintain their home. We need to make sure that we're maintaining these opportunities to be home owners and not just looking at rental housing as the only option going forward to increase net new housing units, because it's not. Now, in that vision, there's going to be a combination of multifamily buildings, duplexes, single family. All of that has to meet the need of the folks that are here and may come here. And what I'll say is there are obvious virtues of all of those. Certain folks are going to want to be in a single family home. Multifamily buildings offer the opportunity for a lot of dense construction in a small amount of acreage, and it allows for resilient construction. When we look at like the depot in Montpelier as an example that's been held up quite often through this flood as an example of how the type of construction we saw there made it very resilient to the flooding and still allowed for dense living. So all of that, what the makeup is, where it is, and how it looks needs to be a part of the community discussion. But these are the things that we know need to be a part of it. So there's a lot of hard work to do now. But that's Senator Sanders calling. He's got some money. There's a lot of hard work to do now, but if we do it right now, this could be a once in a lifetime opportunity to really take a tragic event and help regenerate the gateway to this city. So why don't I pass it off to Secretary Curley to frame things a bit.
Great. Thanks, Alex. Thank you all for the opportunity to address you here tonight. And, you know, you've heard from my colleagues about the possibilities of recovery and revitalization and why the time is now. Today, we face a once in a lifetime opportunity to create a new vision for Barre's North End. And it's a chance to share our expertise and to collaborate and to work as one. By revitalizing this area, we feel we can grow the local economy and the grand list, and we can help protect homeowners and business owners from enduring this kind of future destruction. And we can transform the north end of Barre into the true gateway into the city of Barre. When the governor asked me and my fellow colleagues at the table to join him on a walk of the neighborhood just a few days after the floodwaters had receded in the north end, I remember him recalling memories of time he spent in Barre as a child. He motioned to the park near the police station and talked about growing up and playing baseball there as a kid. And as we walked around and saw the devastated homes and businesses in that area, we all knew the likelihood of this happening again was very real and agreed that it was time to think big. And the governor had already started thinking about it and passionately began describing what a more resilient North Barre could look like and what could help the residents and including the local economy and the environment. He imagined a better future for North Barre residents where homes could withstand the storms, as you've heard about, a place where families would gather for community events, where local businesses would be built to be resilient and thrive, a vibrant neighborhood that showcases Barre's unique history and culture with recreational greenways that both enhance the downtown and reduce flood risk with spaces to store water during flood events. I know community planning isn't generally a sprint, it's a marathon. Unfortunately, right now, I think we're gonna have to start out on a dead sprint. Last week, we learned that there is about $10 billion of additional spending for disaster response in the funding package that Congress just passed. 10 billion sounds like a lot of money, but unfortunately it's not, and it will go very quickly. Senator Sanders has told us that we need to offer additional information on what this project could look like. This means now is the time to act to make sure that this project can access the significant federal funding that it will need in order to recover and build back stronger. So we've engaged Black River Design to help create some concepts. They're concepts that we want to bring back to you in a couple of weeks and show you. I don't know about all of you, but I'm very visual. I know our governor is very visual, and having a set of drawings will help us all visualize what could be. And Black River Design is probably very familiar to many of you because they are a local firm and they've been thinking about how to strengthen the Central Vermont community for years. In fact, they worked on the public safety building, which is right at the center of the project. And they're also speaking with a civil engineer who worked on the Waterbury recovery efforts after Irene. And they understand the need to maintain the character of the community while enhancing the resiliency during the future flooding and building housing capacity. So what I want to make clear is while we've started this work, we know in order to be successful that this has to be a collaborative effort with local, state, and federal partners, and we just have to start somewhere. So we're here today to get your feedback. We've brought a set of principles, guiding principles that Doug will take you through in a minute. It's very short. We've kept it short and sweet. And we really hope that this could guide and design and help us to ensure that the project fits. And as we move forward, it would be a community-driven vision for this North Barre neighborhood. We look forward to, and quite frankly, need your encouragement in this design work. But as I mentioned, the time is short and the congressional clock is ticking. So we're going to need the federal funding in order to fill this really large vision that we're imagining. And I will turn this back to Doug to walk you through the guiding principles, but I want to just say in closing, To achieve this vision, as I keep saying, we must work together now. We must pool our resources, our knowledge, and our passion. We can build upon the successes of the Big Dig and create an even brighter future for Barre. Together, we can revitalize the North End and make it a shining example of the city's resilience, innovation, and community spirit. I'm genuinely excited about the opportunity to do this work, and I hope that we all can agree on the need for guiding principles and acknowledge that we must be willing to get outside of our comfort zone and move at a pace that we are not entirely used to, at least I can say in state government. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Doug.
Thank you, Lindsay. Before I get into the principles and kind of wrapping up, I just want to say my great-grandfather was a stone carver in Barre. A lot of his work is in the cemetery as you go towards East Montpelier. My mother was a draftsman for about 30 years. Coming to Barre was always my treat. You know, they'd bring me into Barre from Marshfield. So the community means a lot to me personally. And I've found that in at least half of my state career, I've been working with municipalities as a property director and then overseeing some of the pandemic programs that have a lot of municipal interactions. And you just have to respect people and you have to work with communities and work towards what they want. So that's the perspective that our principles that we worked up as a team come in. We want to be able to maximize the federal funds. We know we can't afford to do this project. Barre can't afford to do a massive project like this on their own. We can't even afford it at the state level. So it's going to have to be a combination of federal, state, private, local. We're going to have to try to throw everything we can together to make a viable package. It's something where we really need to build a strong case to get those federal funds, and the state wants to help find that money. Not just say Barre needs to find money, but we want to help find that money. We want to build resilience and reduce the risk. Secretary Moore is an esteemed expert in that. So we got that angle covered. We want to respect the local visions for growth. We want to help you figure out what you want that community to look like, what is important to you, how we can make that happen, and how we can make sure that the damage that occurs is not going to happen again in that neighborhood. We can never completely eliminate flood risk or disaster risk, but we can mitigate it as much as possible. Like Julie said, we're in the valleys, we're next to the river, and we only have so far to move. I believe Barre's city is 4 square miles, so there's not much room to move things around. We need net new housing units, like Alex said. There are a number of reasons, financial to quality of life. We just need to make sure you're not losing housing units. And that's the tradition of the buyout program, right? If you agree to a buyout, you lose access to that grand list value, you lose access to that as a housing unit. And we need to make sure it's a holistic approach that helps Barre build new units, preferably exceeding the amount of old units. And then we need to ensure homeownership opportunities and protect that. Homeownership tradition is very important in Vermont, and we know there needs to be a balance there. And that's something we're going to support Barre in figuring out the balance that is right for the city of Barre. So again, Barre, from the state's perspective, is the most impacted community. I just want to reiterate, more than 2.5 times the damage here of anywhere else. And so this is, in my role as Chief Recovery Officer, I have a mandate to pay a lot of attention to this project and to do everything I can to make sure it succeeds. So thank you for having us here tonight. And of course, we're open to any questions the council may have.
So thank you so much, and I bet there's going to be a couple of things, and I'll just kick it off and say it's so wonderful to have the administration here at the table, committed to helping this community, the most flood impacted community. Normally, most of the year we have in the back of the room portraits self-portraits of young people in the community. They're not up right now, but thanks to Sue Higby who's sitting in the room today, and some of our high school teachers to remind this council that the future of Barre, to be thinking of the next generations of Barre. And we were a community with some serious financial challenges before this flood, and even more so after. As Alex noted, we have an old housing stock, and we've had slow population growth. We've had household loss. We've had a slow grand list. We have the highest municipal tax rate in the state. We have a lot of poverty. We have a lot of cost burdened households. I don't say that to be negative. I say that to be realistic. We have $24 million identified in our capital plans as needs. And then on top of that, our $24 million of water wastewater enterprise capital needs, $29 million of general capital needs. And that's not including the fact that we have a public works garage in the floodplain that had to be evacuated and lost equipment during the flood. That's been estimated in the ballpark of a $30 million project. Maybe that's arguably a little high, but still considerable. And we have a $13 million budget, and we just are on the agenda tonight is to take out a bond for $3 million to cover our expenses, non-reimbursable FEMA expenses, and some other things. I'm blanking on it, but so the challenges are immense, and it's been awesome to see the governor in town, and we've had the lieutenant governor and the treasurer and the secretary of state, and it seems like the entire congressional delegation, everybody's been here helping out, and I'm really excited that there's going to be resources to get minds together to help us move forward and think about working with individuals and how they can be empowered, because we need the help. Municipalities throughout the state are so stressed right now, and Barre's included in that right now. So thank you. I think Councilor Stockwell, you had your hand up.
What is the timeline? Is there a distinct timeline with you must have a plan by now, and then you must have this, and then you must have community input by, which would be good to know, right?
Yeah, I can try to address that. And then, so as Secretary Curley said, we kind of need to hit the ground running, but there is no explicit timeline. So right now, there was that $16 billion refresh of FEMA's disaster relief fund, but there's also going to be proposals for federal supplemental requests in different programs like housing and urban development, community development block grant, and other potential funding sources. If we have concepts and projects ready, it'll be more likely that we can arm the federal delegation with information so that they can get that money sourced to Vermont. So I think the sooner we have high level like community agreement on the concepts, that will help identify some of that federal funding. One thing I forgot to mention is that tomorrow I'm announcing an expansion of the Municipal Technical Assistance Program, and we're going to make flood impacted communities above a certain level eligible for that program. And Barre will be eligible for additional technical assistance from the state. And that hopefully will be one of the tools that we use to help design things for the project. I think that we have a very limited window. I don't have a specific timeline, but this is perhaps a bit blunt, but people call it disaster amnesia. If we don't do something this town meeting day, this legislative session, if we don't have concrete action next year, there won't be the same energy and there won't be the same opportunity. So we have one bite at the apple this spring, and it's a lot of work to prepare for this spring.
Thank
I don't
you.
know if there's any more.
Councilor Lozon.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm going to circle all the way back to the beginning. You mentioned that there were 50 homes in Barre without heat. It's getting very cold. In 20 days, things are going to start to freeze. So are you sharing that information with the city manager? Is there any way that, I don't know if any of it is confidential, but when you hear that 50 of my neighbors don't have heat tonight, it worries me. And the first thing I want to do is mobilize our local resources. We're a little kind of boots on the ground. So is there any way, that's my first question, any way you can share that information with the city manager?
So absolutely, Mr. Lozon. I think the absolutely wasn't to the last question, but so we got the data from FEMA and then we sent out a survey. The responses to that survey were state information, and we let people know we were going to be sharing it with utilities and with other partners to try to address their concerns. So I think that if we walk through it, we might be able to share some of that information with local government to try to find solutions. We do want to make sure people don't feel like their information is being pushed around unnecessarily. But at this point, we have shared all of those households with the local utility teams and with the Fuel Dealers Association. And I think we can definitely explore how much more. Most towns, if they have 5 or less, they might not have a need to coordinate as much with us. But with around 50 homes identified so far, I think there's a need to look into that. So I can look into that.
And that's my only concern. I mean, 10 of those folks are going to be last, 10 are going to be first. And I just want to make sure that not the city council, I mean, we don't need to know, but that the manager is aware and that public safety is aware, so that if there are folks, so that we can be checking on them and monitoring that situation. And if we do get a very cold snap where it's 30 degrees, 32 degrees, perhaps public safety could be reaching out to them in advance of that weather event and just seeing if they need help. We do have a Red Cross shelter standing by up on the auditorium. But thank you. You've answered my question. In terms of Black River and the work they're going to do, is there anything that we can do to be supportive? Is there anything that we can do to be supporting them as they do their work? Will they be contacting us?
So I think initially, initially wanted to get a concept design based on the principles that Doug laid out. They were going to put something together more for us to all react to. So when they have that ready, we'll come back. We're thinking in 2 weeks, if we could come back and share it with you. And then from there, that would be like the start of the working copy, I guess. And so I think between now and then, nothing to do, really just let them get a concept out there for us to react to.
And then lastly, not really a question, more a statement. Thank you. Please extend my thanks to the governor. In the early days, as you know, touring the North End, had the opportunity to speak with the governor and advocate for our North End and advocate for the folks who had experienced such devastation. And I can tell you from my point of view, I am going to be the best partner I can be. I will work as hard as I have to. This is one of the biggest opportunities that the city of Barre has seen since the Big Dig. And I made that pledge to Governor Douglas way back when. And the city of Barre never, our merchants, folks downtown, never let us down. And I promise, I will not let you down. We will work as hard as we have to. We will take advantage of this opportunity, because it's not lost on me that I'm grateful that the city of Barre, we deserve the attention, and our residents deserve the attention. They've suffered. But it's not lost on me that for every moment you're spending in Barre, for every minute tonight you're spending here, you're not somewhere else. So we have to be the best partner that we can be, and we have to take advantage of this incredible opportunity. So thank you, all of you, and the governor.
Council Wozniak.
Thank you. So my day job is I work for Hunger Free Vermont. And as you folks probably know, the State Emergency Operations Center contracted with Hunger Free Vermont, specifically myself and my coworker, Lachelle, to coordinate the food response in Washington County. And while I was happy to do that, Hunger Free Vermont was happy to do that work. As we talked about, this is going to happen again. Ooh. And we're back. I know, who's missing? And my point with that comment is that I agree completely with Councilor Lozon. We're going to do everything that we can, and we're going to work as hard as we can to get all this stuff done. And there's a lot of work to do. But the systems that we have set up in place, that the state has set up in place, those also need to work. And I know we all know there was a failure with the 211 system. A lot of the messaging from the state was called 211, and my constituents were getting wait times of hours and hours and hours, or their calls were just dropping. And Hunger Free Vermont, we've met with Commissioner Winters and we've addressed that directly to him. And I know that there were funding requests, and there can be some politicking about who was responsible for filling those funding requests or not. But my point is, we all know there's work to do. We have to keep going, and we need these systems to function the way they're meant to function. And I know you can't get into the nitty gritty of what's going on inside the administration right now, but I've read reports about the governor issuing a statement of 3% or less for budget increases for each department. And we all know inflation's a lot more than 3%. So those are budget cuts. That's an austerity budget. And, specifically like the Agency of Natural Resources, like y'all need every dollar you can to get all the staff folks that you can to get the resources to us. I'm very grateful to hear about the Black River designs coming. I think that's a great place for the state to step up. So I guess my point is, thank you. I know you're all doing everything you can. I know that there are hundreds of people throughout state government that they are doing everything that they can. And no, we can't afford this by ourselves. Barre City can't and the state of Vermont can't, and we have to get all those federal dollars in. But we also need to fund our state agencies so that they can do their jobs. We need to fund 211 so that when people call 211, they get to talk to somebody. So I know this is all above your pay grades, but since the governor's not here, y'all are
Pretty
my
high pay
best.
grades.
Since the governor's not here, y'all are what I got. So if you ask for feedback, what we're hearing, we need to fund state government and make sure that it's working the way it's designed to work.
I can respond to one element of that. In my role, obviously, right now, we have a lot of foundational work to do. But after Irene, there was several recovery reports issued, actually. And one of the tasks I will have, a year or two down the road is publishing a recovery report that talks about things we might do differently and changes we need to make in how we respond to disasters. So that's very helpful feedback, and we definitely will be incorporating something related to 211, related to standing up disaster case management more rapidly. We learned a lot from Irene, and we're also learning a lot in this summer. Unfortunately, learning is painful sometimes, but we need to make sure we don't forget it, right? So that's definitely one thing I'm charged with, so thank you.
Right, and just to bounce off that, what you were talking about, the disaster amnesia, right? Like the time to get this. So yes, we have to pull down as much federal funding as we can, but I'd like there's going to be bills introduced in the legislature to spend state dollars to beef up some of these systems, and I really hope that the administration is supportive of the legislature when that work really kicks off. Thank you.
Councilor Shumbo.
I also want to thank you. It's good to know that there's going to be some support. I think you all hit everything on the nose, that we could miss the window, that I think we totally, as a country, missed the window with the pandemic, and Barre's a small community. I think the window could go by quickly. So between all of us, but also a lot of pushing from your marathon/sprint status. Yeah, we got to keep this thing moving, really. It's a big fear.
Councilor Deering.
Just want to say thank you guys for being here as well. Dealing with a lot of the residents in Ward 3 that have been devastated by this. The news of you guys coming here and speaking of the things you have, the pages of notes here to talk to people about. But it brings a silver lining to a really big disaster that, we could possibly make things better. We talk about what's going to happen in the North End, and we don't know. And it really is devastating to think about all the disaster and the destruction. But to know that you guys are working on that plan, it helps. It kind of gives some hope to people that really need hope. So thank you guys for being here.
I just add one other thing about the Black River concepts. I would just say, keep everything on the table, particularly upland rehousing opportunities, scattered site rehousing opportunities, downtown housing opportunities. We're 4 square miles, but there's a lot of undeveloped land in the city. And with the right lift stations and infrastructure, and we have plenty of water, wastewater capacity, as I understand it, and making investments in that facility. So keep everything on the table. So, and I do see 2 hands raised online. I'm going to limit public comment just to 2 minutes a person, so we can get out of here before 11 tonight. So I'll start with Amy Gelford.
Hi, sorry about that. Just a couple clarifying questions. I wonder if everyone has the same idea of what constitutes the North End. I bought a house in Barre, and I think I live in the North End, but I think different people use it to define different areas. So I'm curious how you're working on that definition, because that might affect how people participate. I do worry about the areas that are not in the North End, but are affected by landslides. One of the common factors is they're on an old railroad bed. There's kind of a chain of a lot of the landslides. So I'm curious if there's any coordinated project to be done along that. And then also I wondered how this might fit in with the Vermont Council on Rural Development meeting that's on October 18th, because that's coming up soon as well, just as everything's happening quickly. Thank you.
Yeah, I can say, so we need, in responding to this disaster, we need several layers of holistic planning. So we don't have a firm definition of the north end. And when that sketch comes out, you'll be able to see where Black River has kind of sketched out the neighborhood. Now, we did go off some flood impact maps and looking at the Agency of Digital Services was able to map the water levels against the property sites and really produce a map that showed where the water went. We went there physically to look at the watermarks as well, but that flood impact zone is what we used to generate the area we're focusing on. But as the mayor just said, we can't just constrain our thinking to that tight geographic area. That may be the focus of the project, but I think there need to be balancing investments in other areas as well. And we also will be looking more at the river basin, the Winooski River Basin, and doing some more broad thinking there that could hopefully benefit the city of Barre and reduce risk. Yeah.
Just in terms of the other two questions that Amy had asked, the State Geology Division has been out on many occasions looking at a number of homes that are subject to landslide risk. I know the city, I think, has contracted and gotten a cost estimate associated with doing some of the remediation of that railroad bed. It is probably cost prohibitive for the city to carry that alone. But one of the things that will happen as a result of the disaster declaration is ultimately the state will receive hazard mitigation grant funding. And those sorts of projects are absolutely the kinds of things we would be looking to do in terms of mitigating future hazards. So that's an open item, but one we're committed to continuing to work with the city to address. And then in terms of the Vermont Council on Rural Development, I'll acknowledge I'm also the chair of the VCRD board, and there will, myself along with a couple of staff from A&R will be participating in the session on the 18th, knowing that there are 4 tracks, is my understanding. One is infrastructure and planning, and that we will be participating in those, both looking at floodplain management regulations, but right through to resilient infrastructure. And so look forward to being part of those conversations. And certainly my hope in wearing both those hats is to be able to help bring that information together so that the input and feedback that's being received through the VCRD process from community members is able to be brought to bear in the conversations that will continue here and that we're having with Black River Design.
Thank you for those questions, Amy. And I see Joel Mulvaney as the next.
Hi, yeah, thanks for coming. I want to know if Black River Design used the state's equity impact assessment tool before they made their plan or while they were making their plans.
So I would say that the equity impact assessment tool is generally for programmatic design and wouldn't really play into a visual sketch like this. Now, that being said, the equity considerations of a project of this magnitude are obviously very large, and it'll be an aspect that the city needs to work its way through. But I would say that, no, the equity impact assessment tool wasn't used in this case.
Thank you.
Next up, I see Janet Shadney, Planning, Permitting, and Assessing Director.
Yes. Oops.
Evening, Janet.
Hello, Janet.
Good evening. I'm struggling with my phone tonight. I apologize. I just wanted to let everyone know that I had a message on my phone from late yesterday afternoon from someone from Black River Design. I was not able to call him back today because we were moving our office, but contact has been made by Black River, and I have every intention of speaking with that person first thing tomorrow morning. So the wheels are in motion for sure.
Great.
Thank you.
Sorry. Last thing I just thought of when you mentioned the report, moving forward, this is now Hunger Free Vermont talking. We discovered over the course of our response work that food is not in the emergency management plans that each municipality are required to have. Food is not factored into those plans. So that just is sort of, it just ended up always being like, oh my God, and we have to feed everybody. So just for your report for moving forward, that could be a helpful suggestion for food to be incorporated into the emergency response plans that the municipalities have to have.
Absolutely. I agree agree. One of the, I try not to take too much pride in stuff I do for the state, but I helped convert the Everyone Eats program from a state program into a FEMA program, and then authorize the reuse of that program as Vermont Emergency Eats. So I definitely see the value in working that into our standard approach.
Thank you so much. It's terrific and awesome to have you here. So,
Thank you for your time.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw one hand right after I said that. John,
Almost.
John LePage, who is a resident of the North End.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just as a little side note, I was bodily rescued. I knew better than to drive in it, but I didn't know better to walk in it. I was one of those pieces of paper, 2 people rescued from a car hauler trailer. I was bleeding, hit by a log, submerged, got home in state of shock, took a couple, 3 days to recover from. So I really felt the flood. It's pretty easy to say, yeah, I feel it. I felt it. And I'm very glad that there's people here that are numbers people, because we need that to calculate things and to make cases. And I am somewhere sub-zero on being a numbers person. But as I hear these numbers, I see them coincide with being on the ground and seeing the reality of what's going on. And some lyrics out of a song come to mind. The more I see, the less I know. And in that context, somewhere around 50 some odd years ago, a bunch of damn college kids and rabble-rousers were screaming about climate change and watch out, we better be doing something. And we're really good at reacting to things. And when something like this happens, of course, we have to react. We have to do something. We have to have some action. How good are we at being proactive? Okay? We are just about skin deep in the context of approaching the foolish lifestyle that we've been living for over 100 years. And it's time to put that in hyper mode. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LePage, and thank you again. So, I think you were getting a round of applause. So. Next up on, yeah, and don't feel like you have to stay unless you are really passionate about local government meetings. Yeah.
Good to have us.
So next up is the Opera House. We're getting an update on the exterior lighting project from Dave Sanguinetti. How are you?
I am very good, Mayor. How are you?
Yeah, doing well.
Kurt, would you like to join me?
Oh, sure.
What are we doing? We got the consent agenda?
We're doing this as a visitors and community.
Thank you, folks. David Sanguinetti. Kurt Thoma is our new executive director at the Opera House.
Welcome.
Welcome, Kurt. So I sent out materials, which I think you all have. Beautiful. What I'd love to do is just use this page as my talking points, and any questions you have along the way, please interrupt me as you go. Quick background, the Opera House approached council a while back and said, hey, we'd really like to put some lighting on the outside of the building because it's really dark. I've come to mind a recent Queen tribute that we had. I was coming back to help with the loadout. It was approximately 9:15 at night. There were 600 and some odd people upstairs in the Opera House absolutely having a blast. And the intersection of Church and Main, you would have thought to God everybody in Barre was asleep. There was nothing going, there was no indication anywhere that there was anything going on in downtown Barre, yet 600 some odd people were right above our heads. So that was one of the eye openers for me to say we need to get some more lighting. Also, it's been noted many times that the Prospect Street side of the building is pitch black for folks that are leaving a concert in the evening. So Jay Lerhopt of Swaney Associates, we've talked with over the years. He's helped us with conceptual design. A zoning permit has been approved. the city has said that they're going to put 110 grand towards the project. So in your materials, there's this picture that says, here's what we'd like to do. And in summary, we're talking about putting lights on the ledge shining up on the cornice, since that's a very pretty architectural detail. There's 13 column locations around the building. And what we're talking about putting there is in all but 3 of those locations, there will be up-down light. So there will be a light that is shining up on the column to illuminate that. And then also there'll be a light pointing down at the sidewalk that provides bright light illumination for people walking along the sidewalk. How am I doing so far? Good? Okay. Carol, you were looking at me kind of funny, so I want to make sure you're with me. All right.
It's the serious look for the cameras.
Oh, serious look for the camera. All right, great. There are 3 places where we would not have uplight, and that's right around where the fire escape is, because there's no columns there. So there would still be light going down onto the sidewalk. Some other places we've looked at are inside the balcony area, a couple lights shining on the Opera House flag, and something that's been, I think, Patty Merriam and Bob Pope's mission forever is to figure out a way to light the stained glass window that is on the Main Street side. So illuminate it from the inside so that it shines out so that people in the city can see it. That's the basic overview. What we did was worked with Jay, and the cost of all that equipment to do that is somewhere in the 120 to 140 grand range just for the equipment. Every electrical contractor that I know is busier than you can imagine. Benoit Electric did the work in the Opera House. I have an inside loop with Benoit because my son is a Benoit electrician, and worked on the renovation that we did in the Opera House when he was a brand new electrical apprentice. So talked to the folks at Benoit and said, would you be interested in looking at this project? And they say, oh, by the way, we already are looking at the fire alarm project here at City Hall as well. And the folks at Benoit, with the limited information we were able to give them, gave us an estimate of, as you can see, 100 to 150 grand for the installation for the project. And that's, Martin was very clear with me in saying, David, this is a really high level estimate because we don't have all the specifics yet.
And sorry, that's in addition to the equipment, correct?
That's in addition to the equipment, that's right. So total in project is well over $200,000. Obviously, we'd like to get the number down to something more reasonable. What we're going to be doing next week actually is meeting on site with the folks from Benoit, the lighting rep, Jay, Kurt, myself, Jeff Bergeron, I've invited to be there as well, and we're going to do a walkthrough to see if we can tighten up some of the numbers. I also really want to know, because I'm a CPA by training, I want to know where the key drivers are for the finances behind the project. If we look at all these various pieces, there may be some that are more expensive than others, and I'd like to have that information. If necessary, we're probably going to have to adjust the scope of the project if we can't find some savings along the way. And right now, we don't have a representative from the city that's participating in this process. We're more than glad to come back to council to talk to you all at various points. If there's somebody that we can work with on a day-to-day, if you will, basis, Nicholas, Jeff, somebody else, we'd like to be able to do so just for expediency's sake. Right now, we're talking about 2024 for an installation date because the electrical folks are all really busy with the flood and everything else that was going on before the flood. I am more than glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks for that overview, David. And as a city official that might be, I think, a really good fit with this project, I'd suggest Caitlin Corkins, who's a planning commissioner with a historic preservation background, and does a lot of funding for renovation work throughout the state.
I'm sorry, who is that, Mayor?
Caitlin Corkins.
Oh, Caitlin, absolutely.
Of course, we're going to have to ask Caitlin.
She's a good sport. She'll say yes. One question, I mean, one is just, I mean, a couple of comments. As I look at the plan, it is a very expensive plan, but I also look at it as a plan that could be phased. So for example, if you did the uplight and downlight fixtures, phase one, that sort of accomplishes the objective, lights the building, and also, most importantly, downlights the sidewalk. And then you could, as a second phase, do the linear upright fixtures and the LED tape lights. So it does look like a project that can be phased. And as I had said earlier, one of the things I'm going to be sensitive to, and I think Caitlin would do a great job, is how the fixtures are fastened to the building. We've got some beautiful granite, and I wouldn't want to see holes drilled in it.
And actually, Tom, I had you actually in mind because one of the questions I have on my list for next week is to talk to Jay specifically and say, do these mount to the brick part of the building? Do they have to mount to the granite? Can we hide them a little bit above the ledge and still get the lighting effect? And I've had the same thought about phasing the project because I know that the high work that would be on that ledge that for the lights that face up into the cornice is probably going to be the most complicated part of the project. If for no other reason, then you're way up in the air. The control system that we've talked about using, which is made by ETC, for doing all these lights, these are all controlled electronically. So we'll have the option of color and phasing it on and off. That unit will handle all the lights that we would ultimately like to see inside the project. And the idea would be that we give the city access to that system as well, so that in the event of a public emergency or something else going on, we could turn on the lights as we wish. Good.
Great overview. Oh, Councilor.
Yeah, just to follow up on Councilor Lozon's point about phasing, or as you said, like going through and maybe scaling certain things down, just goes without saying, but making sure that the sidewalk light fixtures are like priority number one, because that's both nice aesthetically, but also a safety, especially like during the winter, black ice, all of that stuff. That should be top of the list.
I was just remembering starting this conversation with Dan Casey and you and looking at the pictures of the building. Bill have examples of buildings that are well lit, and I think it really could make a dramatic change to the feeling of the building at nighttime when a lot of performances are going on. So it definitely feels like a good investment. And for those who may be hawkish about the budget, this is just to be clear, this isn't a budget thing that the city's prioritizing above other very pressing needs. It's money that is owed to the Opera House based on, as I understand, electrical issues and who was paying what bills. So,
yeah, thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else, all right, that takes us, thank you. Yeah. I think we have an opportunity for anyone else to speak to an item that is not on tonight's agenda. And I think, Mr. Soldi, you were wanting to speak under Visitors and Communications?
And you also have Mr. Barney in the back.
Okay, yep.
Oh, and in the back of it. All right. 1, 2, 3.
I'll start with you, Mr. Selby. All right. Who's on first base? All right. So,
Good evening.
it's an honor, pleasure to be before you. As you know, it's this time of year, Veterans Day Parade is coming forth. And of course, we're looking forward to having the opportunity to put a parade on as well. I have contacted the chief in base the parade route and stuff like that, and I did have some paper that was sent to me today, and I'll get that forward to him tomorrow. In regards to the route that we take, which is the normal route coming up from the auditorium down to Hill and then onto Main Street and to Youth of Triumph. So I'm asking permission for us to use that, and in case of clement weather, we'd like to know if it's possible to have the city offer us up the auditorium to have the ceremony inside. If it's inclement, I did talk to Jeff, and he said, got to go through procedures, which I'm here. And I went to the city manager, so.
He's asking for that no charge, which
It's a fee waiver, and that's a traditional thing that the city's done for a long time to waive
Yes,
the
it
fees
is.
for the.
Yes, and just a little history. In 1919, President Woodrow Wilson created Armistice Day. That was 104 years ago. And now in 1954, Veterans Day was created and changed over. And I would like to say thank you for this opportunity, and we look forward to having you as guests to speak at our ceremony to the council and mayor and city manager as well. We really appreciate what you do for the city. I know it's been tough for everybody, and to listen to the gentleman and the folks talk today about this tragic event that's been going on. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of folks down on North Main Street and trying to put buildings back together, and I have to tell you, it's truly tragic. And the displacement of numbers of people is just amazing in such a short period of time that happened. So with that being said, we appreciate this offer, and if you need any other information, we certainly will come forth. We'd like to see you at our parade, or if not, indoors. And if anybody, please, we will ask you to speak, so put something together.
Is there a motion to waive the fee to ratify next meeting? So we have a motion by Councilor Janney, second by Councilor Stockwell. Any further discussion on this, Councilor Duran?
Just wanted to know the date.
November 11th.
Okay. I thought so. I just wanted to double check and make sure.
Me check. November 11th. And again, it's an honor to be here, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. There's a motion in the second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it. The motion carries. We'll ratify that. Thank you, Ron.
Thanks, sir. Good evening.
We'll ratify that on our next agenda, since it wasn't on tonight's agenda. That takes us to Mr. Salvi. All right, okay, yeah.
No.
Hello.
Good evening.
Thank you for letting me speak today. I'm Randy Belleville. I met with these guys. Can I turn around and say something?
No, you got to address us, unfortunately. Yeah, we're the audience.
So we spoke last week, and I left some information for you about opinion of mine about the drugs in housing. Now, I know we all know there's a problem with drugs in the community and in the housing. But I want to share with you, I want to share with the public here, the taxpayers, something they may not be aware of. And I know that some people don't want me to share this information, but I think it's important, and I think people need to know. So,
just a reminder to try to keep it under 2 minutes. So
2 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So I recently approached the Barre Housing Authority, the tenant services, about about no change in the application process that has to do with applicants that use drugs or abuse drugs. And what they told me was that there has been no change in 10 plus years. During the 10 plus years, it's gotten worse according to tenant services. And I have documentation from them of that. So what I'm trying to say here and make a claim to is that the people here are paying taxes unnecessary because the housing authorities in HUD, they use our local, the fire, the EMS, the police, and they're always trying to they're always up to I live at the Manor, and they're always there. So I'm trying to hurry up here because I know I'm running out of time. But the issue stands that for the past 10 years, there's been a use of taxpayers' money that doesn't need to be. If they changed the application process or did more to try to help drug addicts, but not necessarily aid and abetting them by giving them cheap rent so that they could bring in fentanyl, heroin, or whatever, because that's what we have in the building. And I don't think that's fair to women or older men that are 80, 90 years old that just want to live their life and be happy. So I'm here, I said what I had to say. I think it's a big problem, and I think we need to address it, and I think the sooner we do that, I think the better we all will be. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belleville. Mr. Selby.
The Applewood Random Study, spot on. I've been there 8 years. We have a meeting with Barre Housing tomorrow. Does everybody here, I'm changing the subject, but does everybody know the taxpayers are welcome to their meetings? They're every second Wednesday of the month at 4 o'clock. I know it's bad timing. I think Barre Housing should have it later because a lot of people are working. I'm retired. I'll be there. This is kind of off the charts, guys. Nicholas and I spoke about this with a no motel, with a water break down there. I have 15 days it was broke. I have 441 gallons a day at 3 gallons a minute. It's 441 minutes, and it's 4,320 gallons a day. In 15 days, I'm giving them a break. It was actually 16. It's 64,000 gallons, 64,800 gallons. And you'd said that you're going to charge them for that.
We want them,
If
if they're gonna get charged, whatever they need to be charged for, they will be charged for, yeah.
Let me just hang on a minute here. Give me a second here, my paper's all over the place. I spoke to Clint after I spoke to you on Monday, last Monday, and he said he was gonna get all that paperwork to you. I'm gonna wanna see that. I wanna make sure this happens. I know it's not a big deal, but it's a lot of water that was wasted down there, and I don't think they need a break. Mr. McKenzie's right here, and they know those people down there at the No Motel back years ago never even pulled permits. I don't want to sit here and beat them up, all right? They had to stop their construction down there, all right? So I know they, through the flood you mentioned, they had to bring up somebody from down. They fixed it on last Friday, all right? So I'm gonna want, if I don't see the paperwork, I'll file a full request. I want the paperwork, I want to see the bill, I want to see exactly what they were charged for. So I got a question, where does that paperwork go after it leaves Clint? Because Clint said he was gonna get that information to you guys.
No, it goes to me.
Where does it go next?
I don't know, maybe to me, to them, I don't know. I'll make sure you get it.
Okay. Any idea when?
No. I'll check with
But I
them
will
tomorrow.
get it.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I got.
Hey, Mr. Sodi.
Thank you. That's all I had for you too when I called you.
Okay, yeah, we played some phone tag, I know, so, yep. All right, so that takes us, if there's no other items for visitors and communications.
Actually, I did want to speak. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm not seeing who's speaking, is it?
Monica Miles.
Monica,
Name it
yeah.
is SBA.
Hi, Monica.
Hi, how are you? How are you?
Doing well.
Okay, I'll make it short. My name is Monica Miles. I'm a public affairs specialist with the U.S. Small Business Administration. And the U.S. Small Business Administration just wants to make sure that all the people in your city and in Washington County are aware that if they were affected adversely by the disaster that occurred back in the month of July in Vermont, that they can apply to the SBA for a low interest rate disaster loan. And that applies to people who have their primary residence in Washington County. So they can be homeowners, renters, and as well businesses and nonprofits. And with respect to the businesses, it can be businesses of any size, small or large. The current deadline is this week. It's October 12th for anyone wanting to apply for a property damage loan, where their home was either damaged or destroyed as a result of the floods and storms that occurred back in July, or their business property, the real estate, or the regular property, the personal property of the business was destroyed. That deadline is this Thursday on October 12th. Now, your governor did ask for an extension, and FEMA will be announcing its decision with that soon. I haven't received that decision just yet. But as long as they get their application in by that time period, that would be fine. The SBA offers low interest rate loans for the disasters. With respect to a person who owns their home, they can apply for a loan up to $200,000 for the real estate. And they can apply for anybody renting their home or who owns their home can apply for their damage to their personal property, which would include their clothing, furniture, appliances, a vehicle, things of that nature, up to $40,000. In addition, with respect to a homeowner, the SBA has mitigation loans that can be had as well. That would be based upon whatever their property damage came to and multiplied by 20%. So if they wanted to get a sump pump, a French drain, retaining walls, something of that nature, to try to prevent this same type of situation or another type of disaster occurring to their home, they can make that application to the SBA as well. And any kind of loan with respect to a mitigation in order to build back better is separate from the $200,000 for repairing the damaged property for the real estate and separate from the personal property as well.
Well, thank you for that public service announcement, and I'm sure a lot of details, and sounds like a lot of opportunities for assistance. Is there a phone number that people should call if they want to learn more about this?
Yes, they can call the SBA at 1-800-659-2955. If they're hearing impaired, they can call at 711 for assistance. They can also go to the SBA's website to apply and to get more information. That's at sba.gov/disaster as well. And then we do have a couple of recovery centers with FEMA and with the SBA in Washington County. One is at Barre Auditorium. That's going to be open. Well, tomorrow is actually its last day. Another one is at Waterbury Armory, and that's open until October 14th. Again, the deadline currently is October 12th.
All right, well, we'll look forward to seeing if that deadline's extended, but if not, people should assume they should probably act quickly, right?
Yes.
All right. All right, well, thank you so much. Are there any other items for visitors and communications?
Sure, I'll take this opportunity. I'm getting some messages both via Zoom and on my phone about the audio, and the mics are apparently very sensitive, so don't feel that we have to talk directly into them.
I have to.
And just not to be grumpy, but I'm doing the best I can, and my number one job is to be here and present for the conversations for my constituents. So I do the best I can, but I am not an audiovisual equipment expert. So just
second that.
Keep that in mind. Thank you.
Hey, Jay, I apologize. I thank you guys for letting me speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming. All right, I see Bill Rose.
Hi, could you put the information from the SBA in the chat?
It's a good tip. If she's still on the line, I'm sure she'll add that. If not, we can get that to you, Bern.
Well, not just for me, but because it was so hard to hear, it would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it will be on YouTube.
Right. All right. So,
hopefully.
That takes us to our consent agenda. So we have a approval of the regular city council meeting minutes of Tuesday, October 3rd. We have our city warrants of the week of October 11th, 2023. We have some clerk's office.
No, we don't.
We don't, okay. Yeah, I was thinking of the cannabis license. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, so no clerk's office. The approval of the bank has been moved down to new business. We have authorization of the manager to execute a contract for the local hazard mitigation plan update with the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission. We have approval of 2023 extra mile honorees, which then gets forwarded along to the extra mile team. And then we have approval of a 4% increase to the manager's base salary back to July 1st because due to the flood, we were a little delinquent as counselors in getting the evaluation done for an excellent year. And then also we have the amendment of the municipal bodies and appointment policy to require recordings of certain public meetings as proposed by Councilor Booton. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Counselor Stockwell, second by Counselor Sean Bell. Is there any discussion? Just one thing, since it relates to flood recovery, I was just wondering if you can explain the value of the local hazard mitigation plan, what problems it solves for the city, how it saves us money.
Yeah, so the main thing is that it makes us eligible for higher levels of reimbursement from federal and state government. So, and it was due for an update. It expired, so this will get us right back on track. Beyond, I would say, beyond being the most comprehensive proposal, CVRPC was also able to create a timeline that would generate the fastest submission for approval. So,
yep.
Councilor Lozon.
Thank you. I mean, while I'm wholly supportive of Amanda and Sean's nomination for the Extra Mile Award, is there some way we could sort of change? I mean, so many people went the extra mile in Barre, including probably most of us, at this stage, and most of the people in the audience. So is there some way to, with a special recognition to the work they did, but also an acknowledgement of so many friends and neighbors in Barre who went the extra mile?
I think we can definitely work that into the proclamation.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks.
Are there any other discussion items? So, and I think that proclamation will come back to council. Oh, it won't.
Not usually.
That's actually the privilege. I'll put it on and we can read it out.
You say you do it. It's fine.
We've got time. We can put it on the 24th and then
It's all good.
send it after that.
All right.
So-
Well, it's a mayoral proclamation, right? So it's, okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right. Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. The consent agenda is adopted. That takes us to our city clerk and treasurer report.
Just one quick thing. I know it seems like we just finished a tax collection, and we did, but we've got another one coming up. So I want to remind people that the second quarter property tax installment is due by November 15th. And I do have a song in the can for that, so we won't have to record a new song. There will be a song, but it won't be a new one, so.
Is there a teaser?
No. That's as teasing as I'm getting, so.
Can you do it here?
No.
Last email.
All right, are there any questions for the city clerk or treasurer? All right, hearing and seeing none, that takes us to the Liquor and Cannabis Control Board, and we have an application.
We do have an item for the Cannabis Control Board, and I would invite John I've been practicing it in my mind, but then messed it up. Sorry about that, John. John is here representing Apple Soup LLC, who has submitted an application for a manufacturer's Tier 2 license through the Vermont Cannabis Control Board, and as the council is the local control board, it comes to us for final approval. So I sent a memo and the information to all of you. I will remind you that I redacted the address of the location because as per the statute, the address of the establishment is not public information. So I told John that council likes to have new licensees come before it, liquor licenses, cannabis control licenses, to meet new businesses in the community and to wish you well. So I open it up to the floor.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. If you want to introduce your business, or if you want just to see if we have any questions.
I'm currently making pre-rolls for a friend of mine who has a dispensary in Burlington.
Okay.
Now I'm going to do it out of the home. It's a lot easier instead of driving to Burlington all the time. No brand plans, not having employees or anything like that. Just be able to work from home.
Right. Yeah, and as I understand, it meets all of our requirements for zoning, as meets all the definitions of a home occupation, home business. Okay, right. All right. There are no questions. Motion to approve. I see Councilor Booth.
Nothing personal. I just abstain from all of them, including liquor licenses. So
we have a motion, and we have a second. Councilor Wozniak, and then Councilor Lozon is the second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing and seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
abstain.
The ayes have it with one abstention heard from Councilor Booton. Motion carries. That goes back to the state. That takes us to the city manager's report.
Thank you, John.
Good luck.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple updates. Landslide updates. I think I mentioned to council last time, the Pike Street is our most pressing landslide issue. Unfortunately, that review has been delayed as the geotech firm has had issues with the drilling company. This is still on tap for late October, but unfortunately delay on that assessment of that site. We received our second report from Sanborn Head. This related to Burnham Street, Kinney Place. This is a landslide that's above our Public Works garage, and then would be our second, sort of on the second tier of concern. Unfortunately, the slope is compromising the structure on Kinney Place, and the geotechnical specialist recommended that we vacate the units in that structure. So we're working with this is a real unfortunate impact. There's 3 units in that building. We're working with the owner. We were on site today, myself, Fire Chief, Fire Marshal, and Brian, and we're hopeful that we can get a structural engineer report that says, God forbid a catastrophe, the barn structure would detach from the place where people are living, and so we could eliminate that red tag. So they had an engineer today. They're working on some plans to make that detachment and that assessment possible. So we're hoping that within a week, 2 weeks, that we may be able to remove that red tag for that.
So they would
for that
detach
particular
the
site.
barn and?
No, well, what they're looking to do is not detach it, but make some structural adjustment. I mean, cutting where the barn is connected to the structure. They wouldn't remove it, they just sort of cut pieces of wood that are holding it together. And so the structural engineer was there today with the owner, sort of walking through what they need to do. If that work is done, the structural engineer should be able to get us a report that says, God forbid a catastrophe, the rest of the house wouldn't come with it. Right. So that's what we're hoping for, so that if all that's in danger, again, in the event of a massive catastrophe, would be an unoccupied barn that's used for storage, and the people can return to their home. So that's unfortunate, but we're with the property owner today. We connected him with a structural engineer who came on site today. This is unfortunately going to lead to some displacement for people in 3 units, but again, we're hoping it's temporary, even though temporary is not easy. Some of these things have already been mentioned. Just wanted to remind folks about the deadline to register with FEMA, just Thursday the 12th. There's many ways to get help registering. You can come up to the Barre Up Hub at City Hall, which is open on Wednesday, tomorrow night from 6 to 8 p.m. FEMA is also still staged at the auditorium until tomorrow, so you can get in-person help there. And we are working with FEMA to relocate the DRC to another location in town. So we're showing them a couple. We don't have a lot of space to go around, but we've shown them a couple sites to hopefully keep them local, so that our residents can have access to in-person assistance. So we're hopeful, crossing our fingers, that we find a spot that's suitable for their operations. Somebody already mentioned the Barre Up Forum for next Wednesday the 18th. So I want to remind residents to attend that. That'll be from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Opera House. Come for the pizza, and also come to discuss the near and long-term recovery of the city with friends, family, and neighbors. So this will be the second forum with Barre Up. And just a couple non-flood issues. Open gym season has started. Check our Facebook site. Thanks to the Mutual Club for sponsoring the next 3 Sundays. It's from 5 to 6:30, and it actually kicked off last Sunday. And then yard waste disposal is active. So if you're like me and took a day off last week to clean gutters, now you can go drop it off at the Barrytown yard waste disposal site. I'm not going to read off all the dates, but it's posted on our website and Facebook. It's Saturdays, Sundays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, with various hours. Please, let's be good neighbors, read the rules, regulations, and use the site as is intended. So they'll let us keep using it. That's it.
Any questions for the city manager? First time?
Yes. Yes. Not last.
Question on our last council meeting, we discussed some housing strategies. Councilors were going to send some of their priorities to you. Are you getting those in, and do you think they could be packaged for next meeting to help feed into this Black River concepts? And
that'd be fantastic. I don't recall receiving any yet, but certainly would be great to package them for if we have our state colleagues back in 2 weeks. Oh, you may have. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes.
Okay, so everybody can get their ideas into Nicholas if we're gonna, and then try to get a housing strategy that can feed into this partnership with the state and federal government.
Yep, you've got mine, right?
From before the meeting, yes.
From the initial discussion.
Yep. Okay, that'll count. Cool. Good.
All right. All right, well, I like to kind of be a good neighbor, so always good advice. So that takes us to our first item of old business, which is the matter of the removal of planning commissioner Muir, who was appointed for a 3-year term on.
Appointments, or did we not? Weren't the volunteer appointments new business?
No, I was saying, this is, since we've discussed this now in a couple meetings, I put this up as a matter of old business.
Oh, no, I mean the volunteer.
I don't expect, Tom, I know I'm not gonna win this vote, that's fine. But I'm standing on principle that there's a certain level of conduct that I think city officials should have. And it's like being a good neighbor, right? You don't go on your podcast and insinuate that you're not gonna keep somebody safe in our community. If somebody told me, and if I were buying a home in Barre, and said, I would have kept you safe, but for your political views, I'd take that as a threat. I'd take that as a threat to my person and my safety in my house. It's unacceptable. And I'm probably not going to win this vote, but that's where I stand, is it's unbecoming of a city official to threaten people's safety like that, whether they're inside or outside a meeting. And so that's where I stand. If there's no motion to remove, then we can move on.
Thank you.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I'm going to abstain from this because I honestly feel, Raylene, that you did cross a line. But I think the same thing, I think no real person in Barre is very concerned with the inner politicking of the Planning Commission. I think this thing is dragged on way too long. So I'm going to abstain just because I think this has gone on way too long, and I think Raylene has crossed a line, so I don't really know what to do.
Any further discussion?
Just like to say, this third time, how many times are we going to beat a dead horse that has been being beat? And to continuously bring it up is not really moving things forward. It's not doing the best interest of our community. And that's how I feel, and I'll abstain as well.
Yeah. Councilor Lozon.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you're right. You won't win the vote because an abstention counts as a vote. And if someone abstains, it can't be unanimous. Just a point of order. And, I get it. We all have differences of opinion about this matter. We talked about it back when we made the reappointment, and it was talked about at length, the event. And I was pleased that the commissioner had apologized, had recognized that a line was crossed and had apologized, wasn't asked to, did that of her own volition. But just wait a sec, Jake, just a minute. But going forward, one of our first item was having, we had more firepower in this council at the beginning of this meeting than I've seen than I think I've ever seen. 2 secretaries, chief recovery officer, and Director Farrell, correct?
Interim.
Interim, yeah. Director Farrell. And it really is, you know, I said it last week at the council meeting, no cameras, no recording. It is so important going forward. You know, people are depending on us. It's just important. I understand we're going to have differences of opinion. I understand that many of you may not see the world the way I do. But my God, I look at, you know, I look at hundreds of kids getting killed in Israel. I look at the opportunities that we have here in Barre, and I don't know, sometimes our arguments just seem petty.
Yeah.
You know, they do. And we have to sometimes recognize that we're not going to agree on everything. It's not life and death as long as we can agree on the important stuff. We've got a lot of citizens that need some help. 50 people without heat tonight. I don't have a heating system that hasn't kicked on today. Theirs hasn't. So you're right, you won't win the vote by virtue of the abstention, but
yeah,
I just hope we can work together and move
Well,
on.
Tom, I absolutely agree, and I think we've been dragged down into the mud so many times.
Only if you let yourself, sir.
I have the floor, share the floor. I've given you time. And it's so unproductive for this community. It's a terrible example for the youth of our community to see officials going online, engaging in online spats, again, threatening the safety of somebody. That's a serious thing. You know, when somebody dropped a F-bomb on a hot mic, you were hotter than anything to push for consequence. And this council followed through. The members on the left of this council said, you know what, that wasn't right. We're gonna establish a consequence. We censured, we had anger management for that person. We had a consequence. And that was after we had spent considerable amount of time establishing what we think are civil norms for how people should behave. And it's not that hard. It's like, you get along, you be polite, you support, you build up this community. You don't tear people down. You don't go on your podcast and tear people down. And that's where I stand. And I think if we want to really start focusing on the big wins, the big partnerships, we can't be dragged down in the mud by people all the time. We can't be doing petty arguments about one parking space a year for unified development regulation, losing the planning commissioners. We're better than that. We're better than that. But we're only better than that if we set expectations and standards for what we think is reasonable conduct for people who represent this city. And I want to flag in that we're open for investment. We're open for partnership. We're open for groundless growth. We're open for new business. But we're not going to allow a planning commission.
Motion to call the question.
There's a motion to call the question. And debate. Yeah, that takes a 2/3 majority. Is there a second?
It takes a unanimous vote, Mayor.
No, the motion to call the question is 2/3.
There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries by a 2/3 majority. Is there a motion to approve?
Already got that.
Yeah, is there any further discussion?
It can't be after the call for the
All
question.
right, that's, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay. Abstain.
All right, I'm sorry, I'm going to need to see shows of hands so I can get the people who voted yes. Okay. And the people who voted no.
And the abstentions.
And the abstentions? Counselor Lozon, I didn't, yes, but I didn't see, are you a no?
I would say no.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's done. Let's move on. That takes us to the
Volunteer appointments.
volunteer appointments. We have two applicants. We have Sonia Spalding and Haley Perro of the Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee. We'll start with you, Sonia. Thank you for coming.
Hi, Sonia.
Move to approve.
Second.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you for inviting me. I've applied to be on the Justice, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging Committee. I think they're doing fabulous work. Talk about being a good neighbor. I think you can't be a good neighbor unless you try to understand diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I just want to be a part of that. I think it's an important, they're doing some really important work. I've had the opportunity to watch some of their committee meetings and read through their website. And I think they're doing some good things. So I want to be a part of that.
Thanks for the introduction. Are there any questions from council?
Could make a comment about how it took us like an hour to get to consent agenda. It feels.
True.
Are there any questions for somebody?
Just a quick one. Just my standard. First of all, a comment for the council. I've been working with you for the first time on the Barre Community Relief Fund. Sonia has done the heavy lifting, so thank you. The rest of us just approved the list. The other board members approves the list that Sonia puts in front of us, and she really organizes all of the folks who are scoring the applications for approval. So thanks for that. I've been really impressed with your work. You understand, the importance of making the committee meetings and getting there. And I ask this of all applicants. You understand the time commitments and you're prepared to meet those commitments. Great. Thank you.
And if I could say, I don't do the heavy lifting. It's the review committee that does the heavy lifting, and they get all the kudos. Because
I was referring to the board.
Well, the board is good. I love the board, but the grants review committee is doing the amazing work. So I give them the props. So.
All right, well, thanks for your interest in the committee. Is there a motion to?
We already have a motion.
Oh, yeah.
Second.
Thank you. So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So next up, we have the Parks and Recreation Committee opening. We have Haley Perro. Hi, Haley.
Hi there. How are you?
Hello.
So I think I know all of you and have had the chance to meet you, but my name is Haley Perro. I've lived in Barre City for about 1.5 years. I live on Hill Street, and I am interested in being on the Parks and Recreation Committee. Primarily, I was looking for a way to get involved, and what appealed to me about the Parks and Recreation Committee was its focus on public spaces. I think they're a place where we can build community, and are really good third spaces that are not work, not home, and are usually free and accessible. So I am interested really in learning about what the resources are so far in Barre, working to preserve them and expand them. And also just, again, sort of building community and thinking about the different communities within Barre and coming up with activities and strategies where some of those folks also can interact more. So we're not all sort of living in our individual communities. And I think that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Motion to appoint.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to appoint.
Same question you were listening.
Yes.
That's and how do you like your new neighbor property owners? Have you met them yet?
I have. Very nice folks and doing a lot of work.
So you didn't offer your address, and neither am I, but Karen and I bought a home recently. Well, prior to the flood, we bought a home that Karen really wanted to restore, and it happened to be next door to Haley. And then the flood happened, and we have a lot of properties that we want to restore. So we handed that one off to another couple that we know is going to do a great job. And we told them, take good care of your yard and the trees.
Yes,
So
for sure they are doing that.
thanks, Haley.
Yes.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Mayor Fike. Yeah.
If I just might, so Haley is number 5 of 9 on Parks and Rec. There were no other applicants. So I've spoken to Linda about possibly downsizing the size of that committee. The 5 out of 9 is just going to be an issue for quorums. Same thing with the Transportation Public Works Committee. There's 6 out of 9 members appointed there, and there've been some longstanding vacancies. So if council is interested in open, it might be a good time. We've now gone through this fall round of applications. There's nobody else pending. It might be a good idea to sort of downsize at least those 2 committees that have some chronic vacancies.
when you put that on the agenda, can you also put on about city councilors filling in the gaps when needed?
As an ex officio or?
Yeah, just so that they meet quorums. I had talked to the manager about, I sound like I got a cold, what's going on there? I had talked to the manager about us, as city councilors, filling in ex officio positions that require quorums, such as the DRB or other committees, not voting members, but just able to fill that quota.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah,
Talk
so,
about alternates, right, for the DRB?
Yeah.
Was that along the same lines?
It would be similar, so we actually have, and I misspoke, we have one person for the DRB coming, who couldn't be here until the next meeting, so there'll be one more appointment on the 24th, but that'll still leave one vacancy on the DRB and no like pending applicants.
Gotcha.
Well, let's, so we can get the committee size on the agenda, and then, it sounds like there may be, a recommendation to, either have liaison members or ex officio membership?
Yeah, it's not, it's only if like the chair needs those. I talked to, I shouldn't have brought it up now. It's not.
Yeah, all right, let's get it in the packet. All right.
Got a couple of hands.
Oh, yeah, I see Ellen K.
Sorry about that. Ellen K. East Street. I thought that a quorum, the way you count a quorum, voting members, members who can't vote. How would that make a quorum?
If I'm thinking, I'm going to try to bridge the gap here, but I think under the rules of procedure, it's a quorum of the seats on the body, not the filled seats on the body. And so in the case like sounds like the Parks and Rec Committee, it's a body of 9 members, there are only 5 members. So when people don't show up, they don't have a quorum, they can't have a meeting under open meeting law. So by reducing the size, we can do that. We could also amend the rules of procedure to say a quorum is established by the number of appointed members of a body too, but there's some things you can't change with the Planning Commission and DRB based on state statute, so. Joanne Mulvaney?
Joanne Mulvaney, Pleasant Street, North End. I want you to know, you already know this, but I want folks in the community to know that at least in my committee and probably in many others and many other appointments, there's opportunities to participate without necessarily being appointed. We have working groups, and those working groups can accept other people into the group, not necessarily to vote formally, but certainly to provide support, assistance, and also information. Thank you.
Councilor Deering.
Just 2 comments. First one, we got to update the city's website so that the positions are current. I was going through that yesterday, the day before, and those are not updated as far as how many positions are vacant. My second question, this one's a question, do you know if we have a spot on the homelessness task force?
No, that task force is fully appointed.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So that takes us to our next item on the agenda, which is the authorization of the mayor and manager to execute a contract amendment and closing documents for the sale of the Wheelock Building for a revised purchase price of $110,000 on an amendment to section 24 of the contract, providing that the city retain insurance proceeds received up to $25,000. City manager.
Thanks, Mayor. Council, you received an updated addendum, and Michelle's here to answer any questions, our realtor. On your desk, I left you a revised version of this addendum. This does 6 things. One is we have agreed that the due diligence period has been satisfied. We've updated the closing date to honor before Halloween, 10/31. There's a purchase price reduction to $110,000 that reflects estimates from the purchaser about to fix the building, to repair the building after the flood, which I would say is in line with the city's estimate, just a few $1,000s higher. And then the two next clauses are the meaty ones. One is that we've amended the current section 24 of the contract to say that what it did say was that the purchaser would have been able to receive all the insurance proceeds that we would have received as a result of a claim if repairs were not done. With this change, the city will now get the first $25,000 of any insurance monies received. The purchasers will receive anything in excess of $25,000. Section 5, what this does is basically reestablish that same protection in the contract for the purchasers in the unlikely event of another catastrophic flooding or damage to the property between now and closing. So we wanted to make sure that should something happen, they had the same protections that they had in the previous contract. And then item 6 is that the purchaser agrees to acquire the property as is, where is. So should any subsequent issues emerge, the city is not liable for any of that. And Michelle, I don't know if I've missed anything. Has that covered it? Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion to approve and a second by Councilor Stockwell. I'll make sure there's comments. I don't shut down the chair. We still get to go first. Councilor Burton?
I mean, my vote on this has been very consistent. I do not like the idea of losing control of the historical building that we have. You know, and it's funny that, well, it's not funny. I mean, we just, you know, had the conversation about a couple of weeks ago about the Italian Baptist Church, and we won't have any control over this building once it's gone. So, you know, you'd have to do an emergency proclamation to prevent anything like that. And regarding the actual details of this contract, it was originally $155,000. As is at the time, and for us to bring it back up to that contract level would be probably about $15,000 to $20,000. That money does qualify for FEMA, and it would qualify for passive. And it's what we're doing is we're dropping it by $45K. As I stated before, I think that based on conversations, this would not be happening if it were someone else. And I just don't think that's okay. But the more important issue is that we lose control of the building.
Thank you, Councilor Booton. Councilor Lozon.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I just want to be clear that we are waiving executive privilege. Correct? I mean, it's not a trick question, Mayor. No, we're waiving, so if I want to discuss, we're waiving executive privilege because most of our conversations have occurred in executive session, and now here it's out in the open. So I just want to be clear that I just want to make sure I understand that we're waiving executive privilege, and I
understand
that's the case.
This is the offer that's very consistent with the negotiations that we've had.
So, first of all, I want to congratulate Donnie and Liv for being much better negotiators in the city. The contract was $155,000. The city's contractual obligation when the flood occurred was to correct, basically fix the damage. And you are correct, Councilor Booton, the cost to fix the damage was $20,000. So 155 less 20,000 would yield the price of $135,000. As you recall, the city was offered $100,000 at that time. I could not support that. What I could support, because you got to have a contingency. I mean, we're fixing a lot of buildings, like I said, and sometimes things that we think are going to cost $20,000 cost $25,000. So I was actually willing to put in a $25,000 contingency and reduce the price from $155,000 to $130,000.
So you're detailing our negotiations. So
Yes, well, I want to put things in context.
Yeah, all right.
I just want to put things in context. Now, I understand, Nicholas, that we will, in all likelihood, not be receiving $25,000.
We won't be receiving the full cost of the rehabilitation of the building, which we had estimated, our claim's gonna be $41,000.
Right, do we have any idea how much of
We think it's gonna be, right now, what we know is that Passive has received, is expecting to receive about $10 million worth of claims for $5 million worth of payouts that they can make. So we can make it a proxy of 50%. So if we submitted.
We might get 10.
No, because we're gonna submit 41. So we may get close to 20.
Okay, but not the full 25.
It's unlikely.
And like I said, congratulations on Donnie and Liv. I hope you do fabulously. Congratulations on being better negotiators. I just can't support the price of 110. I could easily support the price of 135 sticking, or 130 sticking to the contractual obligation. But this just goes a little too far beyond that for me. So it's all good. Call the question?
We more.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hadn't noticed. Sorry about that.
So, unless you want to shut down debate. You want to shut down debate? No? Okay, all right.
It depends.
Let's do it.
You seconded it?
I would.
Yeah.
Oh, no way. Let's do it.
So,
Seconded.
so there's a motion and a second to end debate. It takes a 2/3 majority.
Second.
Motion
second for what?
To end debate, it takes a 2/3 majority. It's, and it shuts down any community conversation. I'll be voting no on this motion.
Well done, Teddy.
Is there a motion to shut down, all those in favor of shutting down debate, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. I'm gonna call for a division. Councilor Deering, do you want to shut down debate? Councilor Sean Bell, do you want to shut down debate?
Yeah, let it end.
Yes. Councilor Burton? No. I'm a no. Councilor?
I'm a yes not because I'm shutting down debate, because I'm sick of having the same meeting over and over again.
Councilor Stockwell?
Ditto.
I'm with him. Do we hit our 2/3?
All right. So,
Would
that
anyone
calls
like
the
to change
question.
their
There's a
vote?
motion and a second to approve this deal. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it.
There was 3 of us that said no.
2/3. Oh, are we, good minute. Good call. We didn't get 2/3, right? Hey, thank you. Thank you, William.
I said no.
Just as a side note, it's not very often we agree. This is.
Actually, I think we agree more often than you think, Council Burton. But, and I will say on the Italian Baptist Church, it's a little bit different than a Wheelock House. We have less control over that site. And the reason why is because that site is not in the design review district. The design review district is our downtown. It has very specific demolition standards. It also has more review controls over what happens and how things get built and what they look like. Whereas that's not the case in that section in the north end, where somebody could just pull a demolition permit and there really aren't any breaks that can be applied by the Unified Development Regulations, absent the executive order that I put into place to save that building. So that's, I think, just one distinction, and I know that's going to be an upcoming item on the agenda. So we have some comments. I'll start with Rosemary Averill. So,
Hi, good evening.
all right.
I think the residents want to know, this is a friendly question, and it may be my ignorance, how the city lost $45,000 in this deal when it was blessed in April.
By having
I think it's called
flooding.
a flood.
April. And you're renegotiating in September. It just seems.
Natural disaster. You have to react.
Okay, Teddy, I know what a natural disaster is,
Hey,
but
I think you ask, and that's the fair answer. So, yeah. Okay, William Tilburg.
Thank you.
I do have a concern. Back when this was originally negotiated, the city residents had I believe it was a 30-day period in which to call for a special vote if we did not like to try to go, prevent the sale. And it seems to me that there are people who would not have objected to the sale at 155,000 that would object to the sale at 110,000. And it seems to me only fair that the residents have the opportunity to hold a vote, give them 30 days to hold a vote before you make this approval final, since you are reducing the amount that the city will get by a substantial margin, a substantial amount. And I would suggest that, I don't know if you are required to give us the new 30 days, because this is a new price, but even if you are not, I think that you should be giving us the new 30 days for us to make our displeasure known in the event that that $45,000 difference makes a difference in people's mind as to whether we want this building sold to that group or not.
Thank you, Mr. Tobler. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Tobler. Jerome Mulvaney, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, thank you for calling on me. I'm really flummoxed by this because here we are giving all of this attention to the sale of one tiny little building on Main Street. And we did not give the gigantic buildings all around the city that were practically given away. These are the buildings I'm referring to are the city schools. These buildings were way more than they were sold for, and I'm just very interested and very suspicious, quite frankly, of some of the motives of people who are denying this move. I think that the motives have a lot more to do with who the people are who are purchasing the building, and who is disappointed because they didn't get their favorite tenant in there or seller in there. This is, to me, inconsistent with the ways that the city has discarded or disposed of their assets in the past.
Thank you for your comments. Kat Allen.
Hi. I would just like to say that I am so excited that this is one step forward to Fox Market actually being able to take over this space. I think as a whole, so many people showed up for the first time that we talked about Fox Market being in this space. They offer so much for this community. So for me, I say let the sale happen. Just like get the deal done, close it, and get this fresh new group of people and the services that they're going to bring to downtown in and continue to revitalize downtown. I think the quick sale will pay off for the community in the long run.
Thank you, Kat, for your comments. Barbara George.
George, I understand.
Oh, if you can speak in the microphone so people can hear you. Yeah, you can stand if you want, though.
I understand that there was a flood that did damage to the building, but the flood did damage to a lot of buildings. And is there other properties that were in the works of being purchased during this time? Did they get $50,000 knocked off? It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't make sense to me in my head, so I don't understand why it's this building, which nobody in the city really wanted sold anyway. And then all of a sudden it gets sold, but now the price is getting dropped because of a flood, which seems ridiculous. There's a lot of places that were damaged by the flood. So if you can explain to me why these people get a break on this building when so many people lost their homes, they lost everything. They don't get a break. These people are getting break. I don't get it.
If I may respond, to my knowledge, no, there were not active property negotiations between the city and any other individual seller. And there are other folks who are getting breaks because of the flood. The Board of Civil Authority and Board of Abatement are looking at nearly 100 abatements for folks who had their homes damaged, had their homes destroyed, and they will be getting breaks on their taxes moving forward.
What about businesses?
They are just as, properties that businesses are housed in are just as eligible for abatement.
But then Fox Market purchasing it at the regular price that was agreed on, they would be allowed those same benefits that these other people are, correct?
If they were in an active negotiation with the city, then yes, but they're not.
Well, then I don't understand how.
Well, appreciate, yeah.
It's been a good explanation, it's been clear. This is the building that was under negotiation with the city of Barre. The city of Barre has not been in negotiation with another building. There has been flood damage.
Well, I think as a taxpayer, it should have been put up for a vote so that the taxpayers are losing this money. My taxes are going up, my water bill's going up all the time, and people are getting breaks.
Well, that's actually one of the reasons,
Deserve it.
that's one of the reasons I think some members of the city council have voted to support this is because it's not currently on the grand list. And we're subsidizing, and we've been subsidizing the costs of a nonprofit organization in that setting. So it's,
But it was a
I'm
nonprofit that
just,
was benefiting the
I'm
city.
just explaining that by putting it back on the grand list, it adds value that the rest of us don't have to shoulder. And also there was mechanical damage to the items in the building during the flood. So thank you for your comments.
I was here at the other meeting, and there was another purchaser that was gonna purchase it. So, I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
we were gonna be stuck with, they actually had a better deal, and it remained.
They did not have a higher price. Yeah. They weren't even near this price. So, yeah, I'm just letting you know.
But the building stayed in the hands of the city, and they were gonna do the repairs. To me, that was a no-brainer. That
All right,
makes
well,
sense.
I appreciate your comments.
So,
Yeah, thank you.
well, thank you for letting me speak this time, because last time I didn't.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I certainly don't like when we shut off debate. I don't think it's a respectful thing. But Sullivan?
This week, any one of the 6 council members and you two, have a personal connection with Fox Market?
Nope.
I can say no financial or personal connections to Fox Market. Yeah, on record.
Nope.
All right.
No, sir, I have not had any direct or indirect ex parte communication with the purchaser since approximately June 28th.
What about the rest of you?
No.
Daddy, you said no?
Not that I have to do it. I'll be happy to entertain this, but no, we don't have to, but no. No.
Nope.
So I'd say this is an above board transaction, so, yeah. All right, if there's no further comment, all right, I'll just say, it goes back to why, I'm gonna just say why I'm voting to support this. Grow the grand list, attract a new business to downtown, like Kat said, new business, new vitality, young entrepreneurs, it's a great thing. Fix new private money going into fixing up a building downtown, breakfast option. But also that the city's just really, frankly, struggling to maintain all the facilities it owns. And I'm sure if you've been to parks or you've been to the cemeteries, you can see things that, could probably be a little bit better. We got to shrink the portfolio of all the things that we're trying to take care of so that what we do have, we take care of really well and we do it responsibly. So that's why I'm going to be supporting this. And I think this was a fair, I think this is a very fair outcome to a very protracted process that was not fair at some points, but we don't need to go into that. So there's a motion
To accept the offer.
You already did.
We already had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
What are we voting for?
We're voting, we're voting to authorize, as noticed on the agenda, to authorize me and the manager to execute a contract amendment and closing documents for the sale of the Wheelock building for the revised purchase price of $110,000 and the amendments that Nicholas detailed.
Offer a friendly amendment? Well, no, fun fact, the mayor actually has to execute deeds. The city manager cannot. So just in case, just so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle.
Parliamentary nation.
So you've got, so it's just a friendly amendment. It's up to you.
All right, so the mayor to execute
the deed, the warranty deed, which is how it's got to go down.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
The ayes have it.
Can I request division?
There's a division. Councilor Deering.
Aye.
Counselor Charbel.
Aye.
Counselor Booton.
Aye.
Counselor Lozon.
No.
Counselor Stockwell.
Yes.
Counselor Wazazak.
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. All right, so that takes us to the bond. So there's a request to take out a bond for $3 million to cover cash flow, to cover non-reimbursable FEMA expenses. And was there a third expense category in that?
Move to approve.
I do want to just clarify, this isn't a bond.
Oh, okay.
It's a current expense note, which is a short-term line of credit, gives us an opportunity to flex borrowing as we need it for cash flow purposes. It's for 1 year with an opportunity to renew after the year, depending on where we find ourselves a year from now. The intention being that when we get to the point in time, and that could be a year, 2 years down the road, where we have a handle on what the municipal portion is of any uncovered expenses, we'll have an opportunity to look at longer-term borrowing. The municipal bond bank has an item that they are. Excuse me.
Hey, Bert, if you don't have a conversation, if you could just take it out to the hallway, that's fine. Yep.
We'll have an opportunity at that point in time to convert to a longer-term borrowing. The municipal bond bank is working on a disaster recovery funding options, and with good interest rates and for multiple years, up to 7 years. So we'll likely take advantage of that when we find ourselves, once we have an idea of what kind of numbers we're looking at. What this does is it gives us the opportunity to, as I said, to flex for our cash needs. We can borrow, we can repay, we can borrow. So we'll be using this as a tool for that, so.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. I was just, the reason I wanted to pull this off the consent agenda just was to get, $3 million is not an insignificant amount of money. So what types of, would there be any new expenses that this would cover that haven't already been obligated at this point?
We don't know. At this stage of the game, it's going to primarily cover the outlays that the city will have to make, because the city has to pay every expense and then submit reimbursement requests from FEMA and other funding sources. And so this allows us to make sure that we have the cash flow to make those upfront purchases and then get reimbursed afterwards. The $3 million is based on the amounts that Dawn came to us a few weeks ago, where she was looking at somewhere in the 2.2 to 2.5 million. We rounded up to 3 to give ourselves the additional capacity. We may use it for things like, under the current scenario, we're required to pay full amounts to the schools for education taxes. And if we find ourselves in a position where we're short on cash flow, this allows us an opportunity to borrow to make those up. One of the things that the state that we're looking at through statute, emergency statutes associated with education taxes, is helping covering the costs of borrowing money to make education tax payments. So the hope would be that if we have to borrow for that, we'd be able to get some reimbursement from the state. That's certainly something we're going to be advocating for. We're already advocating for. So I don't anticipate that there's anything in here. It's not buying us things. It's not like a bond, so it's not buying us things. It's meant to help us flex our cash flow. So, and there will ultimately be likely to be a debt balance at the end, which will be the unreimbursable FEMA money, the local share, and then we will look at what the opportunities are to convert to longer term. We don't know at this stage of the game. I mean, look at the presentation earlier today. We don't know what there will be for opportunities from state and federal money to help cover the local shares of things. You know, there may very well be opportunities to buy down whatever our ultimate debt is, whatever our municipal share is.
Like an
But
hour rate?
yeah, or you know, it may be, as an example, with the buyouts for properties, the amount of money the municipal share is 25%. But there is discussion on having state funding available to cover some or all of that buyout. But we may find ourselves in a position where we have to front it.
Right, we have to front it, yeah.
And then seek reimbursement. So that's what this does. And at the end of it, you know, we'll probably have an amount of money that we do have to convert to longer term borrowing. What this does is it buys us time and gives us the flexibility that we'll need to be able to keep the bills paid while we're seeking reimbursements.
That's a very, very helpful explanation. Any questions from council?
Representative Anthony.
Yeah, Representative Anthony.
Thank you. I would just add an additional comment to what Clerk Treasurer Dawes said, namely what the legislature is planning to do in January would only take care of the upcoming fiscal year. It's quite possible that what Carol was referring to is a multi-year challenge, in which case the legislature will not go further than the next the second year of the biennium. So this issue that Carol articulated is going to outlive this legislative session.
Thanks for that background, Representative Anthony.
And we've already, I know that the manager has sent an email out to just bring our legislative representatives up to date with, and the administration with regards to the fact that there will be a multiple year need for a fix. I mean, we're looking at probably a $2.2 million gap in our current fiscal year between what will likely abate and the extra expenses that are going to be unrefundable. And, you know, we'll carry that $2.2 million shortfall into the next year, and the next year it's not something that just disappears in a heartbeat. So it's something that we've already started raising awareness about on the state level. So.
One thing that I think would be helpful as we go into budget discussions, and I can't remember if we had a briefing on all the bonding status last budget season, but just to get a sense of all the bonds, when their timelines are, because obviously when we and what our debt capacity is according to our lenders, to help understand like how much, what is the large bonding capacity for the public works garage or other facilities, or the odd improvements or city hall improvements. So we have just a good solid grounding of what do we owe and how much more is there, what is there. Yeah. All right. If there's no further.
Did I reference resolution 2023-10 in my motion? I don't think I did. Should you make sure the minutes reflect that?
No,
my
but I
motion
will
was to
make sure.
approve
Yeah,
Council Resolution 2023-10.
yeah, the documents and the resolution.
Correct.
Perfect.
So there's a motion and I believe in a second. If there's no further or second.
Sure.
Yeah, all right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and I believe we're gonna have to sign
I'm going to
this.
pass this document around. There are 3 pages to sign. Don't just sign the first page and think you're done. There are 3 pages. It is the top 3 pages, but
So
there
we're
are
gonna have to
3
sign the
pages
first
to sign them all.
So just the first one.
All right, that takes us to upcoming business. So I have a couple things that came from this meeting, right? We're gonna have to ratify the November parade. We're going to be talking about our housing strategy and feeding that up to, polishing that up, feeding it up to administration officials. We're going to be looking at downsizing committees. I'm going to bring in back the extra mile proclamation for some fun fanfare. And when everybody's in town, I know one of those people wasn't in town today. And then, or maybe just gotten back. What else do we have?
We have one DRB appointment.
One DRB appointment. Anything else coming up?
I think we should have a conversation regarding Central Vermont Substance Abuse Services and their discontinuation of services, and just the huge hole that that's going to put in people who are working on recovery. Because we're going to see a huge increase in crime. We're going to see a huge increase in drug activity. We're going to see a huge increase in overdoses because the services that these folks are trying to get aren't there anymore.
You said Central Vermont Substance Abuse Committee?
Central Vermont Substance Abuse Services.
Services. Who's the contact for that?
I don't know.
Okay, right. Would Bob Purvis be a person to talk to about?
We could talk to Bob about it. He's at Turning Point.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that he's directly connected to them. I mean, I would assume that he should be.
But you just want to get an update on benefits that are.
Well, we need to figure out
continuing
what's going on and how these people who are trying to get better in our community can continue to get better. Where the shortfall is, kind of like we're talking about GMT and the bus services, where we've had GMT come in to talk about that. So I think it would be important for us as a community to recognize and kind of sound the alarm on what's going on behind the scenes, so that we can prepare as a community. Because if we don't, we could see this as a pivotal point in our community where we see an abundance of things that we just don't want to see.
I'm just trying to get a sense of who's in charge, what's their role, what, and because
they provide,
I've never heard of them before.
So I can pull it up for you.
Because I only know like Bob Purvis and they're
So they do
community and that.
Interventions, drug tests, alcohol treatment, alcohol assessments.
Are they a government agency?
No. So they're part of the recovery network, and they provide specific services.
Is there like
part of the hub and spoke? So people used to get services through Central Vermont Substance Abuse Services in back of the nursing home that's now called, I can't remember what it's called. It used to be Berlin Health and Rehab.
Genesis. No. Yep.
Okay. Well, let's coordinate and see if who's the right person to get in. Yeah. Anything else? Right.
Last week we met at the alumni hall.
Yep.
I just wanted to mention, Mr. Lazar mentioned a committee that you used to have in housing that had to do with drugs. Yes, you mentioned it last week, some sort of committee. We were all there.
I don't recall.
You used to have, it had something to do with the drugs in housing.
No, what I think what you might be, ma'am, I think what you might be referring to is Councilor Wooten and I were recalling a time when the city council actually met. We took a much more active role. We took the problem seriously, just as this council is going to now. And we actually met at, I believe it was Tilden House. And was it Tilden House or North? No, it was Northbury Manor. And we actually had city council meetings at Northbury Manor so that we could speak to the residents. But there wasn't actually a committee, sir.
So is there, so I apologize if I'm wrong, I probably misunderstood. So is there a committee, any type of committee that's helping with the drug problem in housing, other than yourselves?
There are several organizations that are helping with the drug problem, but you can't just pull people off the street. You understand that. So there was Central Vermont Substance Abuse. There's Turning Point, there's support groups, there's all kinds of things for people.
Turning Point infected somehow?
Turning Point's been down a lot as well.
Because of meds, the drugs. Okay, they're there to help, and yet they have this big problem inside that
All right, I'm just, 'cause in the interest of, it's getting late, well, I don't mean to cut you off, Mr. Belleville, it's just that it's not on the agenda tonight, and it's a really.
People speak for more than 2 minutes, and you're running me out of here.
All right, well, I do think it's an item that Councilor Deering wants to have on the agenda, and we need to get the right experts in the room, so. All right, so that, if there's no other items for upcoming business, that takes us to roundtable. Councilor Lozon?
Thank you. Just excited. Quite an interesting meeting tonight. It kind of, ran the whole gamut. But listen, I'm still over the moon by our first guests and the possibilities. And I am serious when I say that I'm going to work as hard as I ever have, and I'm going to be the best partner I can be for the state. This is an incredible opportunity and one that other communities aren't getting. We are. So I know you're all going to join me in taking this very seriously and working very hard and being the best partners we can be. So that I'll pass.
Councilor Stockwell?
I'm also very excited by our first speakers, and I feel like this is an opportunity for us to come forward with innovative housing designs and with a way to redesign the city and make it better for people, to make it more walkable, to make it more livable, to prevent some of the constant reflooding. This is something that we have to do. We have to agree upon the designs. We have to move forward quickly. It's a great opportunity. Also, I just want to thank DPW. They've been working in my neighborhood, which has been terrific. They've fixed sinkholes. They're working with people. And I got a very rare email saying, thanks for the work. With that, I'll end.
Councilor Stockwell. Councilor Wazazek?
Yes, just in the spirit of more good news, the Aldrich Library has a new director. She started today. Her name is Kristen Bowman, and she is just lovely in every way. So I'd encourage everyone to stop on down to the library at some point this week and say hi to Kristen. I know she'd appreciate it. I'll pass.
Councilor Dean?
I'll start off with just throwing some appreciation to whoever cleaned up the Vine Street playground. I don't know if that was DPW or a group of other individuals. I know that it was brought to my attention 2 or so weeks ago, and that drove through there within the last week, and that's been cleaned up and it looks beautiful. So I just wanted to make a shout out about that. That was kind of key for me as I've got 4 kids. Another one, BYSA football. We've got our last home games this weekend, so I'd encourage you all to come out at Bond Field, starting at 8 o'clock with our first game, and our second game will be at 9:30. So really come out and support these middle school kids and what they're doing. They're great student athletes and giving extra effort in that regard. So with that, I'll pass.
Yes, Councilor Dean. Councilor Shambo?
I agree that our opening guests delivered some incredibly good news, and that Sam's right. This is an opportunity. Well, Tom's right too, to make substantial change. I'm glad that they said something to the effect of be bold, think of anything, because right now what we got isn't so great. So really bold moves that put us differently on the map, and at least state government is seeing that.
Yes, Councilor Shambo. Councilor Boone?
All right, so I just want to give a shout out to Enough Ministries, currently doing 100 single families. Wow, that does sound loud. Single family homes in 100 days, sheetrocking, HVAC, and electrical. Volunteers coming from all over the U.S. 2 tractor trailer loads of supplies like food, clothing, hygiene products, and cleaning supplies immediately after the flood. Enough fed 2 meals a day to all those at the auditorium, as well as people in the community. A minimum of 1,000 meals a day for 2 solid months. Also clothing, hygiene, cleaning supplies, transportation, and ministry distribution for 2 solid months, housed in organized volunteers for over the U.S. for 45 days. And that is just something that, as we talk about extra mile, They certainly deserve a shout out, and I don't know if I've heard many shout outs for them. And next week, GMT meeting is on the 17th. I'm planning on being there. I think I made my comments pretty clear when they showed up and when those that didn't show up. And so hopefully we'll all be able to attend that meeting or try to.
Thank you, Councilor Booton. And on the GMT meeting, I just encourage everybody, it's not to keep it about policies and actions. It's not a personal attacks on the chair or members of the board. Like us, they're volunteers. They're doing the best that they can do, and we need to keep them on track for the interest of Barre and help them understand what our expectations and needs are as a funder and partner, and what our constituents expect. Also, the next day on the 18th, we have the Vermont Council on Rural Development community visit at the Opera House. It's going to be another good conversation about the future of recovery. Excited for that. And also, I'm so impressed by the numbers, Councilor Boone, you said about Pastor Dan's work and Enough Ministries. That's really, truly an impressive amount of work helping people. And last, I think my favorite line from the night was, be a good neighbor. And with that, I'll close.
One quickie, did we ever vote? I mean, I think we're all pretty unanimous in wanting.
Yeah, we voted.
We did vote, okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure because, when we do, I plan on attending the meeting just more in a supportive role than anything else, but we're not all going to get the opportunity to speak. So let's make sure that gets coordinated well. And the message is straightforward and simple.
All right. Any last words from the manager or clerk? All right.
Move to adjourn.
Fair enough. All right. Motion to adjourn in a second. It is 8:40. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The motion carries. We're adjourned.
What time do you have? 8:35. Thank you.